Hi, everyone. Welcome to our webinar from Knowledge to Locally Led Climate Action. We are very glad to see many of you participating today. So thank you for joining us. We will be starting with some welcoming words from our CDKN director, Lisa McNamara. So I will pass straight to her the microphone. Oh, apologies. I am going in the wrong direction. I will pass straight the mic to you, Lisa.
Thank you very much. Can everyone hear me? Yes. It's a great pleasure to welcome everyone today to the first in our webinar series on enabling and scaling locally led adaptation. And it's very great. It's great to be kicking this off. And I think great to be kicking it off with such an inspiring webinar on really celebrating those actors who are always often at the forefront of locally led adaptation in communities, young people. So we're going to be learning about how knowledge brokering has been an essential tool for them to really lead locally led adaptation in their communities. So very excited for the discussion ahead. And maybe just a little bit about CDKN before we kick off. Just to introduce the Climate and Development Knowledge Network. We're a global partnership, a global alliance of Southern-based organizations working across 3 regions, Africa, Asia, and Latin America, and really trying to ensure that we support locally grounded, locally led, demand-led work and climate action that is also equitable and that really foregrounds the needs and the experiences of the most climate affected people on our planet, and who are often most marginalized and excluded, and how to really make sure that they're at the forefront of climate action. And we focus on mobilizing the knowledge and the capacity and the leadership of these frontline communities, and who hold the knowledge and the stewardship and the leadership to really build more lasting and sustainable climate resilience. And over the last 5 years, we've been working on a program under the Step Change Initiative, which is funded by IDRC and the Dutch Ministry of Foreign Affairs, to really accelerate locally led adaptation. And we've supported LLA in 16 countries, across sectors, across levels of governance, through country programs, but also through grants to local organizations to really help them to lead LLA in their communities. And this has also spanned working with local platforms like water funds in Latin America or local governments to lead equitable climate resilience planning in small cities in South Asia, and on the African continent, a range of different country programs and grant programs. And we really seek as CDKN to bridge the knowledge to action gap. And we focus a lot on knowledge brokering, which you'll hear a bit about today. And really that's about, really in a nutshell, supporting diverse voices and diverse communities to come together to co-create, to be in shared dialogue, to really enhance the trust and the relationships that we need to accelerate urgent climate action, and to really enable more of the systems change that we are all looking for. And in doing this work, we've also sought to learn with partners, and we've learned with partners like Muungano and SDI Kenya, who we're very, very glad to be joining this discussion with, because we can't do this alone. We need to learn together. And this webinar will mark the first in a series. And please, we invite you to join this learning journey with us. We invite you to take part in the webinar series. There are a number that are happening over the coming months. If you want to learn a bit more about how knowledge brokering enables action across scales and bottom-up demanded processes across scales, Please join us next week. And we also on Friday have a webinar looking at what LLA really looks like in practice with a very deep example from Mozambique around food sovereignty and how food sovereignty is advancing LLA in Mozambique. And the aim of this webinar is really to look at what does LLA look like in practice, to move beyond theoretical conceptions, but to really look at how our communities and how our organizations working to support LLA around the world in practice. So please do join us. This will also mark an important celebration and inflection point for CDKN, because we're coming to the culmination of our final phase of work, which is closing off in the early 2027. So it's really a moment for us to reflect together with you, and to reflect on what might come next, and really to be able to think about how can we advance climate action in the years ahead. So we're inviting anyone to contact us and contact CDKN if you are interested in helping us shape the next chapter. And on that note, I'm really delighted to have SDI Kenya and Muungano with us today to talk about how young people are forging ahead on locally led adaptation. And I will, with that, hand over to Lucia to get us started.
Great. Thank you so much, Lisa. Yeah, I'm also really excited to be having this webinar. This marks the culmination of a long-term collaboration with our colleagues and friends from Muungano and SDI Kenya. And so I wanted to start by actually sharing a little bit about our learning journey that started quite informally from a conversation that, oh, wow, I didn't know that. As you can see, I'm not so familiar with Canva. It jumps quite far. It started from an informal conversation in October 2024, so nearly 2 years ago, where we discovered that we had a joint interest to collaborate. So in talking about knowledge brokering, something that CDKN has been doing quite a lot, the Muungano team, Jacob and Christine, that you will be hearing from very soon, told us that they really wanted to know more about knowledge brokering. They wanted to learn more about some of the approaches and strategies that they could incorporate in their work. At the same time, in that conversation, we realized that actually they were already knowledge brokers, and that we could really learn from some of the approaches and strategies that they were using to drive climate action in their communities. So that is where we decided, okay, let's team up. And the first concrete activity that we did together was in February 2025, last year, where we co-ran a workshop, a peer learning workshop around the knowledge brokering strategies and tools and approaches with 30 young leaders that they were working with in 4 different informal settlements in Nairobi. And this was really an opportunity to explore knowledge brokering in depth, hearing from them what they were already doing, providing a platform for all these young people to learn from each other, and also bringing in experiential learning, some theory, some games that CDKN was experimenting with. At the same time, we also had started already our learning journey together. This workshop itself was co-designed. We had a long session in October where we started learning, like, what was the team already doing? How were they understanding their context? How were they doing co-creation? What challenges were they facing in those processes? How were they communicating their work? So we'd already started learning from them, and those learnings shaped the focus of the first workshop that we had in February, but also really started shaping our learning journey, which is culminating soon in the next month or so with a paper that we have written written together. We have a draft title page over here, so we really encourage you to watch the space because we will be sharing soon this finalized output. But also at the same time, we strengthened a little bit their knowledge brokering activities through a micro grant of $3,000 that served the purpose of furthering their knowledge brokering work in the communities where they were working. And specifically, like the focus was around 3 of their projects. The Race to Resilience initiative, which focuses on the connection between climate change and mental health. And you will hear a lot more about this from Camilla, one of our speakers. We also focused on the Jamaica Award Climate Adaptation Planning process that Christine is an expert in, and this really aims to strengthen local resilience to climate impacts in the Jamaica Ward of Matar Informal Settlement. And then from Jacob, you will hear about the Tue Pamoja research project that is advancing nature-based, like locally driven responses in the informal settlements. So these 3 projects are the focus of our learning paper. They are the focus of our webinar today. And through analyzing them in depth through our learning workshops, we found out that there are different strategies, like 4 different strategies that the Muungano youth team uses to bridge the gap between knowledge and climate action. The first one is an evidence-driven approach. So here we realize that like the starting point of all of the Muungano team's work is to collect evidence in a very participatory way, in a community-led way, because then this evidence is used to advocate, plan, design, and implement interventions in their communities. But it's really the starting point. Everything that they do is evidence-based from these through these data collection processes. Also, another strategy is that all of their work is informed by their context. This is something that in the knowledge brokering work we talk a lot about, like the importance of starting from understanding our context. And here how they do it incredibly well, and from like really we can learn from, is that all of their community challenges are addressed in a holistic, systemic way. So whether it's health, whether it's solid waste management, whether it is disaster risk response or responding to climate crisis, all of these challenges are addressed in a really interconnected, holistic way. Like the fragmentation and silos that we see in a lot of the activities that are happening out there is hardly seen in their work, which is something really incredible. Another thing that they do is to identify their key stakeholders that they will work with, and they engage them from really early on. As I said earlier, from collecting the evidence all the way to reflecting about the work. And something else also that they do really well is that they design for sustainability from the start. All of their projects are so intertwined that they all lead from one into another, which means that their impact is really strong. They're not individual projects. Something else, another strategy that like drives their work is co-creation. So really bringing together different knowledge types, different experiences to inform what needs to happen in their communities. And so like it starts from recognizing that everyone plays a role in facilitating community action, from people with disabilities, the elderly, the women, of course, the youth. They then create really strong structures to enable co-creation to happen. So like ways for people to be heard and participate in the processes. Building trust and commitment and ownership is really critical, as well as creating safe and inclusive spaces for different voices to be heard, so that the voices that are not traditionally brought into conversations, again, be they people with disabilities or elderly or the business community, those who have no time to engage, can really come and participate, but in a safe way. They also, because politics is everywhere and power dynamics. They also create very nice ways to deal with sensitive issues or sensitive stakeholders so that they navigate these political challenges. And finally, they use tools, different tools to facilitate participation, reflection, and learning, which you will hear more about or read more about in the paper. Their final strategy is communications, no? Like really translating knowledge for different audiences to ensure that it is well understood, that it's accessible to different types of audiences, whether they have high literacy or not. And then also using very creative ways of communicating, whether it is through arts-based approaches like murals or poetry or song, whether it is through podcasts or written documents. So they have the Know Your City TV arm of their work, KYC TV, that is really strong at doing very powerful communications. So these are the 4 strategies that we have outlined in our joint learning paper and that we'll touch on in different ways in our next part of the webinar. So with that, I will pass on to Stanley, who is going to moderate our fireside chat. Stanley leads a lot of the Africa work in CDKN. And so I will pass to you and our panel, Stanley, so that we can hear from you. I will also stop sharing the screen because we want to see your faces rather than a slide. But yes, please, everyone, enjoy the next part where all the rich learning is going to be coming out. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Lucia. Now we're going to hear from the experts that you've just introduced their work. And to begin with, we'll be joined by Jacob Omondi, who is a Muungano youth leader, Christine Wamboi, who is also a Muungano youth leader, and Camilla Gojobe, who will be engaging in the 3 different projects that we've really taken time to unpack in the learning paper. To begin with, we will hear from Jacob. So Jacob, could you talk us through about how Muungano youth leaders link evidence to climate actions in their communities? And in this, you can build on from the work that you've done using the different projects, specifically the Tuwe Pamoja project. Over to you, Jacob.
Yeah, thank you very much, Stan, and it's nice to meet the team too. So my name is Jacob Omondi. Maybe before I speak about what we do, maybe it's good to maybe speak about what Muungano stands for those that don't know what Muungano. So Muungano is Muungano Wanavijiji. It's a movement of people living in the informal settlement advocating for land, housing, and services. Besides that, we are getting the technical support from the SDI Kenya. That is just Muungano in a nutshell. But now to what brought us to this meeting, one, we are trying to see how do we link data when it comes to the kind of work that we are doing, and also when it comes to bridging knowledge to action, especially around climate action. So first of all, in terms of how we organize our activity, one, we have to ensure that we create like local engagement with the different stakeholders during our conversation. So first of all, we try to see what are the best stakeholders to engage while conducting maybe a research. So maybe when it comes to data, the reason as to why we normally ensure that our data is driven towards supporting the community is, one, we ensure that there is also data sovereignty, where the community are at the center stage of all the data processes. So I can give an example of the Tuwe Pamoja project. I know most of you have seen and maybe have read about the Tuwe Pamoja project. So it was a project of its own, where community members were part of the engagement from identifying the research problem to until the reporting phase, and also maybe the analysis bit. So the community members were part of that engagement, and it was really a good opportunity for co-creating sessions with the community members and the support of the Slum Dwellers International technical team. And for me, I felt like conducting a data with community members, it's very strategic and also very supportive, in that community members can own this data and can know how can they use this data, maybe when it comes to advocating for issues around land, housing, and services. Besides that, we are also trying to see how do we also ensure that solutions come, because if community members are not given the opportunity to also maybe being part of the data, it's also hard for them to get an opportunity of understanding how to co-create or how to come up with solutions towards the data processes. And another thing is that when we are conducting our data, we don't only conduct data, we also ensure that community also building up capacity amongst themselves when it comes to the kind of data that we are building. So we train young people on how they can conduct data. Once they have this training, they don't have to only work with Muungano. Others can also get an opportunity to work elsewhere and also support other initiatives that are within the community, within and outside the community. And besides that, we're also trying to see how do we ensure that this data that we collect also, as much as young people also part of this data, how do we build a social capital there? The social capital comes in where we mobilize young people in conducting a data collection process. When young people from different areas, they come up and build a social networks where they can come up and with different teams, or maybe different WhatsApp group and also different social setups, that they can also try to see how can they work together, and also how can they collaborate when it comes to addressing climate initiative. Another thing is the political class. I know for Muungano and Wanavijiji, we are normally apolitical. We don't take side when it comes to politics. But at the end of the day, we also have to ensure what is the politics of the day when it comes to initiatives that young people are having. How do we ensure that we also see the projects that we are supporting within the community? It is not all about the community themselves, but there is also political goodwill from the existing leadership within the informal settlement. So from this, we also ensure that even the area leadership are aware of the kind of information that we are collecting. And also maybe besides that, once we've collected the data and we also have to do the research, how do we ensure now we start up engagement? So maybe we come up with the initiative trying to analyze the circular economy when it comes to the existing environmental opportunities that are available. So we've also been conducting trainings around circular economy with young people around environmental advocacy, just to see how do we scale up the existing projects that young people are having. So I can give a good example of a group called Miami CBO. Miami CBO was started just immediately after the flooding that happened in the year 2024. And the flooding itself caused more than 6,000 people lost their lives. More than 15 people lost their lives, and 6,000 people lost their property. So from these, we ended up, how now do we come up with a better plan of addressing this issue? So the government had ordered 30 meters riparian reserve. So a lot of houses that were living along the river were told to relocate to different areas so that it can also protect lives. But young people saw an opportunity where they can now start nature-based solutions like planting trees, carrying out urban farming, and also building parks where community members can come and rest. So from these, I was also trying to see how do we change mindset of the people living in the informal settlement about environmental conservation, and also when it comes to even addressing the psychological issues around the informal settlement. Because you'll find a lot of people living in the informal settlement, they don't even have enough spaces where they can even just go and maybe relax, like a green place, a green spaces, because majority be due to the demand for housing. So the young people within the informal settlement saw the need of trying to see how do we build or offer solutions towards supporting our community. Then another thing was about Another thing was about we are now having we were also trying to see how do we analyze even the value chain. The value chain when it comes to the environmental opportunities that are available. So for Muungano Wanavijiji, what we did, we brought different groups that are carrying out environmental conservations within the informal settlement, and we are trying to analyze what are the opportunities and how can young people tap into these opportunities, and also try to see what are the best stakeholders that can be available when it comes to supporting issues around environmental conservation. And for us, I think young people are having a lot of solutions towards supporting the environment. The problem is resources. When I say resources, I mean not only financial, the technical resources that is also needed. I think we also need to have more awareness around the environmental conservation bit, and also analyzing how do we support our young people beyond this. Then lastly, Muungano Wanavijiji, we are also trying to build a resilience hub. These resilience hub are not only built for maybe people to come and see them and go. No, it's an opportunity for young people to get real-time information when it comes to issues around environmental conservation, issues around upcoming floods, and other initiatives that are coming on board. And also we are trying to see how do we also ensure that Muungano, because we are also at a plan of building disaster response management team within Madare and also other informal settlements. So for this one, the disaster response is just to ensure that, we can have the first in hand people that can also give us information about what is happening on the ground. Maybe if there's a flooding that is coming, maybe if there is an outbreak, fire outbreak, and other climate-related disasters, we can get early information on time, and also we can also give the community members an opportunity to know what is impending, what is coming up, and how can they adjust to the environment. Yeah, then I think for me, it's just that, and I'm very happy to be part of this engagement. Yeah, and lastly, I just wanted to talk about the capacity we built. So far, maybe based on the engagement that we've had over the past year, we've reached more than 300 young people. Yeah, in different initiatives that we've been having. So that one is for me. I feel that one is a plus, because for us, we normally say we don't only call people as individual. We call you as a person representing a group, and you'll find most of these groups are composed of 30 people, 30 members. So if you find one group, if you invite one person from one group, it represents over 30. So there's that ripple effect. When you engage 30 youth, you'll find that you've engaged more than 600. Because if you just do 30 times 20, it's 600 youths you've involved. So that is how Muungano Wanavijiji normally organize themselves, and also issues around livelihood. How do we ensure that even these groups that we are involving, they are also doing things around livelihood? That's why we keep on talking about the circular economy, and also trying to see how do we analyze the existing value chain that is available. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Jacob, for that enriching conversation. And you've given us an evidence-based approach on how you're utilizing data, how you're collecting it, how you're building capacities within the community members themselves, so that they can be able to push for action within their community. But to build on this conversation now, we'll go to hear from Christine, who will talk to us about who must be in these conversations, who must we not leave behind when these conversations are happening. And when you speak about this, I would also want you to expound on the process that you've been engaging in Kiamaiko through the Kiamaiko Ward Adaptation Plan. Over to you, Christine.
Okay, thank you, Stanley. Thank you everyone for joining, and thank you CDKN for this opportunity. So as we move on, I would say the first people to be involved are the community members, because they are the ones who understand the issues that they go through and the risks that affect them. And also the government officials, their presence is always helpful because of things to do with policies and accountability, so that even when we want to use public spaces, we get the right documents for them. Reflecting back on the Resilience Hub, it's a community space whereby it had different people had businesses there. Then the government decided that space should be a park. So it was hard for us to get that space initially, but through the county government and through the county surveyor, we managed to get the space whereby everybody is at peace because no one is encroaching illegally. And also where you balance the presence of women, the youth, people living with disabilities, and another aspect of including children, because also children have a say whereby when they see a park, they want to play, so they should be included so that they can say what they want to see in such spaces. And also acknowledging the local community leadership structures where we have the Nyumbakumis, we have the disaster response team. They should be also part of the conversations because they represent different people in the community. And also we have the aspect of youths whereby they help in mapping, data collection, and mobilizing, and also conducting these discussions in the community. And also inclusion of the CSOs and other partners who might be who might be also doing the same thing that we are doing in our communities. Through the Jesse lens, whereby we use that while doing the chemical adaptation, we used it throughout the process. We used to hold smaller groups targeting the marginalized, the people who don't attend meetings, or rather are never interested, and they had a lot to say. So we call them clusters, the smaller groups during the chemical adaptation. We divided these smaller groups into clusters so that we will have, so that we will reach a larger number than the usual faces. When we started these meetings, we started with the people who are always present in meetings. But as we were moving forward, we saw that we have the same people attending these meetings, but nothing, we're not seeing any change. So we decided now we need to go look for people who don't attend meetings, who are not interested, but they have something to say. So we decided to go per settlement, and every village had people who are attending the meetings. And that's where we got to have, the issues were raised, and we got to have the intervention of the drainage construction and the resilience hub. And also using the accessible venues. We see people not being able to come to, if you decide to put a meeting where they use transport, they won't come, or rather very far from their village. So using the clusters were based in their villages where they just walk, maybe 1 minute walk, 2 minutes walk. Yes, so that they could manage to participate in the meetings. And also appropriate timing. In the morning hours, there are people who you might not find. So we used to juggle around time so that we can get views of different people. So even we used to hold evening meetings whereby we can have people who are at work during the day so that they can participate. And also creating safe spaces for people to speak, which has been an issue. Because people speak and then they are used, whatever they say is used against them. So it was strictly a safe space for every community member to raise their views. So the chemical adaptation plan, it was a community-led. The community were the ones who were in the front line in coming up with the issues, and we had 6 thematic areas that we focused on. And the first one was flooding, drainage, waste management, health, security, education, water and sanitation, roads and environment. So to achieve all this, we needed to do profiling and enumeration to understand the population of Kiamaiko, the services and the risks and vulnerabilities of Kiamaiko community. And also we conducted data collection and mapping. That's how we came up with the 6 clusters. Because it's a big one, we have about 29,000 plus population. So we needed to get at least views of different people, and also using the CHP, community health promoters, way of working, because they reached, every CHP has a household has 100 households that they visit every month. They don't visit all 100, but every month they have to visit around 33 households. So just using their model of visiting households, we also used it as a mode of reaching everyone so that everyone can understand what the adaptation plan is all about. And also we will prioritize the issues in the community. And also use of more community engagements, whereby you just don't do one meeting and leave it at that, because people tend to forget. So continuous community engagement was very important for us. And also the prioritization of issues. Of course, we had other issues, other pending issues, but the ones that had impact was during the flooding, whereby we didn't have a place whereby we could record the data of people affected, or rather the flood, everyone who was affected was, we didn't get to capture everyone, especially the refugees were left out, only to realize they were also part of the people who were affected during that time. So that's how the resilience app came about, so that we can have a data center and a place whereby we can have the disaster response team meetings, and also a counseling center, and where community health promoters can meet and report incidences in the community. And also the aspect of co-creation of solutions. We say that we balance between the old and the young, so that every idea can complement each other. We all need each other. And what really worked well during the Kiamaiko adaptation is the formation of the community structures, which didn't exist before. We only had Nyumba Kumi, but currently we have the WASH team, and we also have the disaster response team. And also the part where I said about ownership, the ownership strictly belongs to the community. The community remained engaged beyond the planning. So they are the ones who run the Kiamaiko Resilience Hub, whereby they know where they offer administration costs, like they cover it, and also the management and everything that it entails. So we don't have like a focal person that we can say is the owner of the Resilience Hub. The community owns it. So the community is able to access it anytime. So the adaptation solutions were designed around the actual community needs. Nothing that is in the adaptation plan that it wasn't raised by the community. So they are really aware about it, and they have been championing, and they are still championing for better services in the community, and also they're championing the drainage that recently was constructed. They are championing now for more drainages to be constructed and holding the government accountable, because there are parts whereby they are looking forward to seeing the drainages being constructed as soon as possible to avoid more damage. Especially currently, we are waiting for the El Nino rains. And also involving the government officials from the beginning. We saw it as a very good idea, because they worked with us throughout the journey, and they were also beneficiaries of the resilience hub we have now, an environment officer office, whereby they now currently are the can I say owners? No, but the space belongs to them. So the space cannot be given out to anybody else because it belongs to the community. Okay, so I think what needs to happen is just continuous community engagements through validation meetings, whereby now we are able to see what worked well before when doing the chemical adaptation, and what we look forward to seeing happening. Even after now we have the interventions, what else can we do so that we can improve the issues that people prioritize, because all have not been tackled? Yes, I'd like to stop there. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Christine. But before we let you go, could you just clarify what a cluster is for people and how they are formed?
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So a cluster is a group of community members, different age, using the just lens, age, tribe, gender, all that. Yeah, so, and also it's divided according to villages. So we have 19 villages. Out of these 19 villages, you cluster people according to the closeness of the villages. So if village A and B are closer to each other, you join village A and B and make it one cluster. Yeah.
Okay. Okay, thank you so much, Christine, for really taking us through the Kiamaiko adaptation plan and how you're ensuring inclusion is happening and no one is being left behind, and even considering the JC issues, within the community. When we have time during the question and answers, the session will ask around the drainages, how you ensure the young people are recruited, how you are doing the cycling of them as they were working in the project. It would be great for you to share about that. But now moving to Camila on how why must we work together as a collective? Why must all partners come together to work? Why must all partners come together and work as a collective? And when responding to this, I would want you to reflect with the work that you've been doing in Mathare, Mukuru, and Soweto, using the Race to Resilience project, and what are the different roles and roles that each partner has played. Over to you, Camila.
Thank you so much, Stan. Just to start, I'll say Race to Resilience is a mental health initiative where we have safe spaces in informal settlement to invite different people in groups. They sit and then they discuss issues of climate change, how it's affecting their mental health. So it's that kind of discussion. And just to explain where we started with mental health up to why we brought the Race to Resilient and why it was important for Muungano and for us in the community is mental health started. We started the discussion after COVID-19 happened, and it was brought to light that a lot of people are affected, and not just the community, but even the core researchers. And we had numerous conversations, and everyone was talking about when we were doing research during COVID. You could go to the communities, they don't have food, they can't access health facility, and even the CHP, the community health promoters, they will speak and say, it was really a hard time and everyone was affected. No one knew where to, an avenue to share what was happening, or even to just, help each other. Everyone carried a burden and then they didn't know where to get it. And then we came to the 2024, and then the flooding happens and all our informal settlements were affected. There were loss of life, loss of property, and it started being very loud to us that people are affected. They don't know where to share all these things. We had cases of suicides and we didn't know what to do. And that is why when we had like proposal with like different partners, and the Rest to Resilient was born. So the Rest to Resilient, currently we are having it in different home settlements. That is Mukuru, Madare, and Kahawa Soweto. And it's just young people creating safe space for other young people and other people from the informal segment to just sit and speak. And in the sessions, we discuss what is climate change, how has it affected people, and what happens when they are affected. What do they do? And the issue. Most of the time, people don't know how they are affected or if it is interconnected. So we get to discuss those kind of questions. And then we get to discuss, if this is what you're feeling, how do you get help? And then we refer people to different services and they get help. And that is not just the work of Muungano and Wanavijiji alone. We have different partners in Risk Resilient. For us, Muungano and Wanavijiji, what we bring is we have the community, we know how we are affected, and we bring that on the table. So we organize the communities, we bring them in group, and we facilitate the conversation. We have 2 other partners with us, that is Tabasamu Cafe and Basic Right. And they're the ones who are mostly supporting us with the technical aspect of mental health, because for us, we don't have the expert of mental health. And for Tabasamu, they have the counselors, and they have done the Tabasamu Cafe before. So the cafes that we're having, we still call it Tabasamu because they're the ones who are helping us know how to formulate the cafes. And they also guide us on how to do it. For example, how do we create a safe space? How we're supposed to like talk to people, because we're not expert and we cannot give, expert guidance on how to go about it. So they're the ones who guide us on that. So they'll come to the support and even help us on how to facilitate, how to speak with people when someone is vulnerable. How do you go about it? If someone comes to you on the side and say they have this kind of problem, how do you connect them with other counselors where they can get help? So that is what they support us with. And then we have basic need, basic right. And then for them, they help us with the communication, but also they have a team of, I'll say, people with lived experience of mental health. And for them, they bring that to the community, because most of us, we don't know what usually happens or the different kind of mental health cases. So they bring that and they help us understand if someone has, for example, to just help people with the stigma around mental health, because sometimes in the community, we may think if someone has mental health, then it means they're crazy, then it means they can't like talk to other people, they can't relate with like the community. So for them, the lived experience help us just to bridge that notion and understand like someone with mental health, they can be normal people, they can live a normal life, but they need this kind of help to help us with that. But also basic right are there to help us with the referral pathway. And in this case, referral pathway means if, for example, we have a critical case in the cafe, where do we send this person? Because in the cafe, we don't have the expertise of saying, I'm a counselor, let me counsel you. It's just offering the safe space for people to speak. So now with them, they bring us the referral pathway and we understand it as TOTs. And then we get to understand, for example, if I'm in Mukuru, what are the health facilities in Mukuru that I can refer a person to go and get help? If someone is not ready to get help or is afraid to go to Mukuru, our health facility in Mukuru, is there other health facility that is not within Mukuru that they can access and then they can get help? Other than that, they've been able to connect us with a telehealth, where we have we have like a toll-free number where people can call and then they can get counselors on the other end. And that helps with also the stigma around going to a health facility, because some people say, for example, in Muungano, we have like a rehabilitation center where people can get mental health services. But people think, people might think I'm crazy, I don't want to go there. Or like if a lot of people are like people who abuse drugs and alcohol are there, then someone might think other people will see me as that and they don't want to access a health facility. Then we have a toll-free number where people can just call for free and then they'll get counselors and get help. Apart from the partners, because that is what they bring, we have like now community people who run the Tabasamu Cafe, and that is us. And we are like the TOTs within the informal settlements. We are trained with Tabasamu Cafe, with the counselors from Tabasamu Cafe. And for us now, we offer the safe space to the community. We've been trained on how to facilitate everything I've said about the referral and all that. So most of us, the TOTs, are like majority of the team who went through knowledge brokery. And for us, the knowledge brokery helped us now understand how do we translate, how do we not move from like the technical words of mental health and depression and all that to a very simple terms where community can understand. And that also meant that when, the toll-free number is just not for calling, you can text. So we start with the team that is supporting with the telephone health services, and the TOTs were able to identify like local language or like the slang the community understand, or that they can text, and like in case of emergency they can get help. For example, we look at what are like the young people using words such as when they want to say I'm suicidal, or like I'm going through something, or like what are the keywords they use in like slum, which they can text, and then the other services they can see and like they can get help. I think that really helped us break that knowledge. And for us, it's just to simplify it to the community and make them understand this is not out of reach, specific. There's like certain people that get this kind of challenge. All of us can get this kind of challenge. When we go through a disaster, we can, be affected, and it's okay. And we need to just get help. Just make it easy for the community to understand it, to help them mitigate the stigma around mental health and help community get all the services they need. So I think the whole project, what was important was just bringing the different knowledge or experts together, because now for us, Muungano, we couldn't like handle all the cases that is coming to us when people say they're not okay. They're like cases of suicidal in the community. So having all these stakeholders or like the organization that have experts in that field has helped us reach community that are in need and like connect them to different help. I think that is all from me. I think if there is any clarification or question, I'll be here to answer.
No, thank you so much, Camila. And it's also very interesting to hear on how you're using the knowledge brokering techniques to pass information on climate change and mental health. And maybe because we have 2 minutes before we go to the next segment, I would want to hear from each one of you, starting with you, Jacob. What are some of the key lessons around your role as a knowledge broker? What are some of the lessons you picked as your role as a knowledge broker since you got the training? We can begin with you, Jacob, and then to Camila and Christine, 1 minute each.
Well, I think for me, my role as a knowledge broker, one was how do I create change when it comes to like helping my community understand the kind of work that we do? Because you'll find most of the time in terms of when it comes to like bridging knowledge to action, especially when it comes to the data that we normally collect with the community. One, as a knowledge broker, you have to be at a position of translating the knowledge easily in a way a community member can understand. So one, it really helped me in understanding the way I can communicate, like in terms of boosting my communication skills with the community. Besides that, also building confidence while you're also translating this knowledge. You have to like build a confidence that people can even say, because people believe in what you see, what they hear. So when you talk to people, do they have that belief in what you're talking about? So you have to also believe in yourself, bringing the confidence when it comes to like talking about the kind of information that you want to share. And also beside that, there was also the aspect of like understanding the different communities have different expectation and different dynamics. So as a knowledge broker, you should be at a position of understanding all those dynamics and just be moderate when it comes to even communicating to the community, because there's a time you can go to a community and maybe interact with them, you just see like there's that kind of opposition that is coming from this side compared to other side. So you have to like try and strike a balance between which kind of information do you need to give to people. And also as a knowledge broker, you need to understand the culture. Different communities have different cultures. So you'll find that maybe I can give an example of Muslims. I can't go to where Muslims are and maybe say that maybe buy a food that Muslims don't eat, like for instance, pork. Yeah, so you have to understand the kind of the culture of the people that you're interacting with. Are they more receptive when it comes to communicate to what you're talking about, or maybe what you're talking about, does it affect their culture? And I think the last thing was also about my interaction with the area leadership, because bearing the fact that you're also a young person and you also see there's an opportunity, there's the local governing structure. So you have to understand how do you interact when it comes to the intergenerational communication between the local stakeholders, the community members, even the Muungano Wanavijiji Federation leadership. So you have to also understand in terms of if you go to a different age group or different people with different positions within the society, you also have to understand how do you communicate to them, how do you balance, how do you ensure that your information is well heard. Because for young people, I know it's easy to communicate to them, but if you go to people with different positions within the society, there's a way that you need to communicate. I think for me, knowledge broker was more, it was a good training that really made me become more confident and also maybe communicating to my fellow young people and also the community as a whole.
Thank you so much, Jacob. Camilla?
For me, it's mostly about how do we translate the technical big things to like the local language that community can understand. And this is in different ways. For example, do we write blogs that community can understand, they can relate to, apart from like, expecting the scholars to understand and to target all these people? Are we able to share information to the community widely and ensure everyone gets that information and they get to understand what is happening? Because sometimes if something has happened, for example, the flooding happens, no one knows about climate change, no one knows they were at risk. How do we get to tell them that this is a risky place? How do we tell them, it's climate change, probably it will happen again, maybe it will be worse when it happens? How do we move to certain areas? So I think it's more about communicating, ensuring the message is very clear and using different ways to share all these messages. And I think in Muungano, we ensure we do that very well. From when we collect the data, we ensure like the community understand what is happening, how they use the data for advocacy, how to help the communities. And even when we are, creating awareness, we ensure like we use different ways. For example, we use wall murals to like send a message. We go to like radio stations and TV stations that are locally around our informal settlements where we know the people are listening to, and that they can get the message, they can understand it. So how do we break that knowledge and it gets to the community and they get to understand it without the technicalities. And I think that is key to me, and it's quite important.
Yeah, thank you so much, Camilla. Christine?
I think for me, reliving even what the strengths of SDI and Muungano is documentation, where we say evidence strengthens advocacy. So we have evidence with the drainage, and which is our first intervention, and the second one, we have the Micro Resilience Hub. For me, it's a key lesson whereby we've documented stories around these two interventions, whereby even we had youths from the same settlements working, offering non-skilled and skilled labor. Also, we had the youths who are doing waste management, reviving, because now they have work to do. Before, the waste was being thrown in the drainages, clogging and causing disasters here and there, especially when we had during the rainy seasons. So it's evident that at least when we have these interventions whereby you can share stories around and also have documentation around them, then it strengthens our advocacy and also continues our work in our informal settlements. The other thing is collaboration, partnering with everyone, because every stakeholder holds a different piece to the process. So engaging them and collaborating with everyone who wants to see change in the community is also important for me. That's a key lesson that I learned. And the other one is the interventions succeed when we engage community members. We use the community as a platform whereby we could share our issues and challenges that we face in the community. And after all that process, we came up with interventions that are evident. So it is important to have community members as focal persons in every development thing that anyone wants to do, because we will have chosen to do it even without informing them, but it wouldn't have had impact because they were not involved, and it wasn't a need to them. So we need also to prioritize what needs rather than focusing on wants, or rather bringing projects that the communities are not interested in. Yeah, so for me it's that. Thank you.
Thank you so much to the three of you, but we still have the question and answer from the rest of the group. So I don't know, Lucia, are there some of the questions that have come up?
Yeah, thanks, Stanley. I saw that Karen Otieno asked two questions. I was curious to see, Karen, would you like to ask your question by unmuting, or shall we ask it on your behalf? You're welcome to come in and chat so we hear also your voice.
Thank you so much, Lucia and Stanley, for the amazing coordination, and also for Muungano SDI Kenya for your amazing presentation, and also the great work that you're doing on the ground. It's very enlightening and also encouraging. So my name is Karen, and I'm the founder of AfriUtu Climate Action, a youth-led organization and an initiative that works with the local communities on matters climate action and restoration. And it's also meant to integrate youth and communities into the picture. So when I got to hear what Muungano has been doing on the ground, I really got inspired by that work, and also that lived experience from the work that you have done. And that is why I just came up with those two questions to ask how you get to deal with the matters involving community in knowledge dissemination, or getting them to get that exact bit of it, which is knowledge brokering, and also to get to see how well you have worked on that, and what are the success, what has been a success on that, what has also been a challenge, and what are some of the lessons that you have learned on the same. And also the second question is on getting to connect communities. I know you have said you have been working with youth. So as your team working with this youth, how do you also get to connect to policymakers and decision makers on these initiatives that you get to do, and how effective has that been for you? So thank you, and back to you, Lucia.
Thank you. Maybe just to add on that first question, I think an aspect that was very interesting of what you asked is how do you make knowledge brokering effective where climate information is less accessible? No, sometimes climate information is not available, but how do you make then that knowledge brokering effective? Just a small addition that I don't know if it had come through, but you're welcome to decide as a team who would like to take on the two questions. So the link to the decision makers and the government, and how do you do knowledge brokering if you don't have a lot of climate info?
Yeah, thank you very much, Karen, for that question. It's very nice to hear like people asking questions that it means that they've also understood and have understood what we are talking about. And I think for maybe when it comes to, I'll start with the second question, which is about working with the government. How do you ensure that you also involve the government or maybe the policymakers when it comes to the climate innovations that are ongoing within the informal settlement? So for us as Muungano Wanavijiji, what we normally do, we normally ensure that our data is community driven. When I say our data is community driven, it means that community members are involved directly during the research process. Then besides that, you're also trying to see, as much as we are conducting this data, so where will this data be? Where will we use this data? One, we ensure the community themselves own this data. They can use this data and they can easily access this data when it comes to addressing climate innovation. Then another thing is about the county government. So whenever we are collecting data, we also have to like inform the key stakeholders like the Nairobi environmental officers that are within the areas that we are working. So if it's in maybe Mathare 4B, which in hospital ward, we ensure that even the environmental officer within that ward is aware of what we are doing. And beside that, we also engage the environmental disaster management team within the county government so that we can also ensure that this conversation still is ongoing. Then from the research that we did under the Tuwe Pamoja, we were also having the mayoral engagement. So for the mayoral engagement, you are trying to see how do you ensure that even the county government have access to this the Tuwe Pamoja data that we did. So the mayoral engagement was about bringing city officers. That one is within Nairobi County, South Africa, and also other countries that were also part of the consortium. And also beside that, we're also working very closely with the academia, especially the University of Nairobi here in Kenya, which they were also offering an opportunity for us to, like, as much as we are doing this data, it is also more scientific when the university is also engaged. Then there was also the question about the knowledge. How do community know about the existing of this data? So whenever we are conducting data, we have to do one of our processes. We also have to do like the mapping exercise. We map the disaster-prone hotspots within the settlement so that we can also prepare the community themselves. Whenever a disaster is coming, we can just give the information to the community. We say this is the place that you need to be careful when there's a disaster. Then beside that, we are also we've also been supporting a young people and also the community initiatives that are in place with mobilizing financial support to support some of their activities. And I think from the engagement we've been receiving positive information and also positive innovations that young people are doing around climate mitigation and adaptation. Yeah, thank you, Camila.
Thank you. I wanted to add, how do we share the knowledge on climate change to our communities? And one, I would like to to add how we mobilize. And for us in Muungano, we mobilize in groups. That means usually we have like savings groups, which is normally a lot of women are there. And then we have like climate groups, which is now a lot of groups are like doing the climate groups. And we believe in the power of like the community sharing knowledge within each other. And like most of the time you'll find like there's a group that has a lot of knowledge about climate change, and then they'll be able to share or like share to other groups that are maybe starting onto that space, or even like starting or like just support them understand it better and like know how to mitigate or adapt to certain things. But most importantly is also looking at within even our different counties. For example, for us, we work in Nairobi, Nakuru, Kisumu, Mombasa. What are like some of the solutions that are happening in Kisumu or even Nakuru that people in Nairobi maybe don't know yet, and then they can learn from each other. So we usually have like exchanges within our settlements, within our counties, where we get to learn what is happening and we get to adapt all these solutions that is the other groups are doing. But most importantly, in our different areas, we usually have like a lot of awareness within our settlement. So how do we make like other communities understand issues on climate change, what they can do? Most of the groups they find that they are on waste, and others are doing urban farming. So for them, mostly they'll create this awareness where, for example, if it's waste management, they ensure like this, they sort of like teach communities how to recycle, how to divide waste, and that is just to benefit also themselves because they want like the waste to get more money, and like it's sort of like both of us will benefit. So the community benefit because like the groups will take the waste and then the people will sell the waste. For urban farming, mostly they'll teach communities how to grow their own farm, even like at the household level, like the kitchen gardens to create that. But most importantly, also we create knowledge or share knowledge through wall murals. That is like through art. We have like a lot of youth also who engage in art, and now it's art for advocacy. So we'll engage them to like create wall murals where we talk about, climate change, mental health and climate change, just different topics where community can creatively interact with, and like, sometimes, it's hard for you to be told something, but when you see it, it comes to light, you get to understand it very easily. And also just with that, it creates, that curiosity, and like people have discussions around it. And sometimes you just see it with like people in the community to have these discussions, which now bear fruit where now more people get to understand what is this climate change? How am I affected? What can I do? And I think mostly that is what we do within the movement, within our informal settlements. And I think Christine will add also a few.
Okay. Just adding to what both have said is that youths are always at the forefront in the work that we do in our communities. We can see that the economic adaptation majority were the youths who are doing the mobilization, the data collection, and even just part of the knowledge brokering. So the youths are always forefront in our conversations, and also even engaging the policy makers and the government. So for Kiamaiko adaptation, majority of the people who were spearheading the planning were youths. And during the 2024 plans is when we got to have every youth on board, just helping and rescuing people who are the survivors of the floods, and trying to figure out where they would sleep, and trying to find partners who can come on board and help because they lost everything. So as we were going about doing all this rescuing, we engaged the administration office, whereby the chief is a very vocal person and a very easy to go person, whom we engaged and agreed that he will be spearheading about now the resilience hub. So he told us, find us a space, and we will do the rest. So we came up with different spaces, and we didn't want them to be given just without public participation. So we conducted public participation whereby the community members agreed and disagreed. So we had 3 areas where we were looking for to have the resilience hub. And when we did this public participation, now this one has it's all inclusive, because the youth cannot decide for everyone, because also they don't know the history of the entire population. So we two areas the community resisted completely, and then the last one the community agreed upon it because it was empty and there was space and it doesn't have like people with personal interests. So we involved even the business community that surrounds that place, because they were feeling like they were just a way only for other people to come and build. So it was important for us to involve them so that they can understand why we are bringing the Resilience Hub and what the Resilience Hub is all about. So youth inclusion is our stronghold too. Yeah.
Just to add also, I know Lucia mentioned about the Know Your City TV space. Just to elaborate more on how we also share information through media. And we have like a space for youth. It's a creative space where youth get to tell their own stories of their own settlement, how it is. And one of the things we do is we'll take photography of, for example, of climate change, and then create an exhibition within the community. We invite community members and have discussions about climate change, how it affects community, and just to hear like their views and also understanding on where the community is. And that is another way we share like the information. Also, apart from photos, we also, generate videos, which you can also like check on our YouTube channel. We have like the Know Your City TV Kenya, and even we have like the Know Your City TV globally that has like with the other affiliate countries. But we also show like stories from different groups, what they're doing in relation to climate change, what they've been able to achieve, and how they create impact in the informal settlement. I think also that is how we share knowledge.
And also recently, CDKN supported us in producing blogs on the current work that we are sharing about, and murals and podcasts. Yeah, thank you so much, CDKN, for the support.
Thank you for sharing so many like great responses and approaches, like also so much knowledge and experience in the community. And also when there is not a lot of maybe formal climate of information, there's so much experience in the community. But I did want to give an opportunity to Dennis to ask his question. I know that our time is running, but Dennis, would you like to come in? You asked, I think, quite a more maybe philosophical question, but one that I think affects all of the locally led work. Are you able to unmute? Are you still on the call? And I'm afraid this will be our last question that we're able to ask. Otherwise, I can ask if you're not able to unmute.
You can ask Lucia.
Yeah, please interrupt otherwise. But so Dennis is asking, if locally led adaptation is supposed to place communities at the center of climate action, how do we reconcile that with the fact that often knowledge, funding, metrics, power from institutions that determine what is success comes from outside, like external entities, funders. So at what point does locally led adaptation become merely externally validated adaptation? And who defines what is resilience? I hope the question is clear for the team, and I would suggest maybe one of you answers so that we can then give a little bit of space to Sarah to close us off.
Okay, so yeah, I think I'll talk about the funding bit. First of all, especially when it comes to, there are so many locally led climate adaptation processes that are ongoing young people are carrying out real climate change innovation. But the problem when it comes to, I'll talk about the funding. So the problem is that when it comes to funding, there are so many dynamics when it comes to even accessing these grants and the funding, because you'll find that there's a lot of donor requirements, there's a lot of due diligence, there's a lot of bureaucracy when it comes to applying these grants. So you'll find yourself maybe as a group, you've applied for a funding maybe like this month. So by the time you're receiving that fund, maybe you'll receive that fund in the next maybe 3 months or 6 months. Then besides that, you can also wait for that maybe the grant itself to like come. Then you end up like after the 3 months, you're being told that we are sorry, you've not qualified for this fund. So I think there's need for like coming up with a better strategy of maybe applying for these grants, and also maybe when it comes to the practical bit, when it comes to the funding of the climate innovations. One, I think we have the issue of the communication skills. So does these groups that are carrying out the climate innovation, do they have like the real capacity maybe when it comes to managing this grant? Because we'll find that majority of the groups that are getting funds, you'll find that majority of them, maybe they are more knowledgeable, but if you compare what they are doing and what other groups are doing, it's totally different. So how do we ensure that even we just have the actual ongoing processes when it comes to the kind of innovation that young people are having? Because you'll find the groups that have more knowledge on maybe how to apply grants, they'll apply grants more and more and more. But you'll find the groups but they don't have that knowledge will automatically be unsuccessful. So I think there's one need of ensuring that we have a better funding strategy so that it can reach so many people that are doing real engagement. Then besides that, I think there's also the need of like building capacity. So how do we ensure that we shift from just supporting the groups when it comes to getting funded, but and also like remove these remove these the broker bit. So you'll find that as much as this group will be receiving this fund, there must be somebody that is in between that grant. So you'll find maybe a youth have applied for maybe like maybe 500,000 grant, but you'll find that as much as this group is applying for this fund, there are so many brokers that are on board. So by the time this money is reaching, it might reach 200,000. So I think there's also need to reduce the brokerage bit, and also capacity build young people when it comes to the disaster management, innovation and knowledge. So how do we ensure that even we build the existing knowledge with the young people? That's why for us as Muungano, we normally just look at the opportunity of doing exchanges and also bringing different experts to just speak to the young people that are doing real environmental conservation bit, just like Camilla said earlier. So I think that's my input.
Maybe I can add something. Ideally, the funding is supposed to come and decide what needs to happen, what intervention is supposed to come. But I think the communities need to be let to define their own problems and also come up with their own solutions, so that even when the funding, when they get the funding now, we get to feel the impact, because they have been involved from identification to planning to co-creation, and then now to the evidence-based development projects. So it's important for the also funders to support even the part of just identifying and building up on the projects that they would want themselves to have in the communities, rather than imposed projects. So it's important also for funders to look at the bit of where they support the idea of communities identifying the problems and now then funding the projects that the community themselves decide. I would give an example where
Christine, I may not allow you to give the example because we have a minute left, and I really want to give a chance to Sarah. Sarah is the SDI Kenya Communications and Youth Engagement Manager. She's been fundamental in all of this work, and I really would like her to wrap us up. Apologies because it's been such a fascinating conversation that I think we could talk for another hour, but we will have to leave that curiosity for people for next time. Sarah, I pass it to you, and I take the chance to thank everyone already for their participation and engagement, and all of you for your amazing work.
Yeah, thank you so much, Lucia and the CDKN team. And this webinar, to be honest, has been really insightful, even for me from the inside. And for us, of course, as SDI Kenya, we provide technical support to these amazing people. And just to be able to listen on how they were able to be knowledge brokers. And just as we wrap up, because I know we really don't have a lot of time, is we should probably at some point do this webinar again, Lucia, in future. We would really love that. And when we had the knowledge brokering training, some of the comments we keep on getting is, oh, we didn't realize that was the name we used to call for researchers, and at time in different projects we still do. Just the youth being able to now understand the context, being able to identify the problem, being able to co-create, and it's just really nice to see what young people are doing. And I know they've mentioned walls. If you, for instance, package it into a wall, and that the young people are able to draw our new role talking about mental health, climate change. And Joshi, it was in your presentation. I hope the audience were able to, as some of our listeners are able to see it. Then we usually say that's a talking wall. If someone is, for example, going to the market and they were not able to attend a meeting, a community meeting, for example, they will still see it because it's just right there and it's been packaged in a very simple way that they can be able to understand and get information. And that is the whole point of even young people being at the forefront, how they are able to package this information either into blogs or videos or in a podcast or a wall. Then, to be honest, if they are able to do that, then at least information can be able to reach communities, and you never know what it might help with, especially now that we are going to have a minor rains, and it will be up to these knowledge brokers to share information where they said spaces, how do they access information, how do they know what the hotspots are, and we really can't say much more, but thank you so much for joining, and I hope this has been really insightful for you as well as it has been for me. Yeah, thank you so much, Muungano. Thank you, CDKN, and I'm really hoping that we can meet again.
Thank you.
Thank you, and thank you to Stanley for wonderful moderation of our fireside chat. All the best to everyone, and we'll share information with you. I hope you're happy to hear further from us when the paper is published, so you can really go in depth in some of the things we have shared. Bye, everyone.
Bye.
All the
Thank
best.
you.
Bye.
Bye-bye.